Lost Ark Dreaming Summary. The climate dystopia where class lives above the waterline. Cold open. Picture a city that tried to outrun the ocean by building straight up. 5 towers stand off the coast of West Africa. Their lowest floors sit under seawater. Their highest floors look down on everyone else like a separate country. Then something goes wrong deep below. Not a headline, not a speech. A breach. A leak. A sign that the walls are not as solid as the people in charge keep saying. This book turns on whether 3 people from 3 different floors can stop a collapsing system without becoming its next set of victims. The promise of the book, Lost Ark Dreaming, takes a familiar fear, rising water, and makes it intimate. Not a distant catastrophe, but a daily architecture. Who gets sunlight? Who gets air? Who gets to feel safe? The novella promises a tight, pressured story with a clear question under the action. When survival becomes a hierarchy, can anyone still call it survival? It also promises something rarer than gloom. A serious attempt to show how people cross a divide that was designed to be uncrossable. Key takeaways. If a society is built to protect a few, it trains everyone else to treat each other as threats. Fear becomes a management tool, not an emotion. When the foundations are forced to live and work in the dark, the whole structure becomes fragile, no matter how glamorous the top looks. Bureaucracy can be a kind of violence when it turns human lives into paperwork, permissions, and acceptable losses. Stories are infrastructure. They hold communities together, but they can also be used to lock doors and justify cruelty. Myth is not the opposite of politics. In this world, myth is one of the ways politics speaks, especially when leaders want obedience. A crisis does not automatically unite people. It usually hardens the lines that were already there, unless someone chooses otherwise. Cross-class alliances start with small moves, listening without contempt, naming what is true, and sharing risk. The hardest moral question is not can we survive? It is who counts as we when the water rises. The core thesis. At its core, Lost Ark Dreaming argues that the real disaster is not only the flood. It is the system people build after the flood, then call inevitable. The towers function like an ark and a prison at the same time. They keep people alive. They also divide them into categories that feel permanent. Uppers live high and rule. Midders keep the machine running, close enough to see power but not to hold it. Lowers live under the waterline, doing the work that makes every other level possible. Into that structure step 3 points of view. Yakini is a mid-level analyst, earnest, ambitious, and trained to trust the official story. Tuoyo is a mechanic in the submerged levels, carrying grief and responsibility in the place everyone else prefers not to imagine. Ngozi is a high-level bureaucrat shaped by status, career fear, and the habit of looking down. When a breach forces them into the same corridor, the book's engine kicks in. The question stops being what caused the damage, and becomes what kind of world produces damage like this, then calls it normal. The big ideas. The tower is a country, not a building. The book treats architecture as law. Floors are borders. Elevators are checkpoints. Light and air are privileges. That matters because it turns inequality into something you can touch. It is not abstract. It is a daily route, a daily smell, a daily limit. So what? If a system is physically built into people's movement, it will feel natural even when it is brutal. Changing it takes more than good intentions. It takes crossing the border. Order can be a weapon. The people in charge do not need to be constantly violent. They only need rules that make violence automatic. A leak becomes a political event. A repair becomes a moral test. Even the language of safety can hide a threat. Stay in your place. Trust the briefings. Do not ask the wrong questions. So what? Many real systems work like this. Harm does not always arrive with malice. It arrives with procedures that protect the top from seeing what the bottom pays. Water is not just a backdrop. In most climate stories, water is an enemy. Here, water is also memory. It presses against the walls. It shapes religion. It shapes fear. It shapes dreams. It is a reminder that the world outside the tower still exists, even if the tower tries to pretend it does not. So what? The book suggests that you cannot build a clean moral life by sealing out everything messy. The outside returns, sometimes as weather, sometimes as history. Manufactured monsters keep people obedient. Rumors circulate about beings from the deep. The tower's leadership encourages fear of what lives beyond its walls. That fear does 2 jobs at once. It makes the outside terrifying, so the inside feels like mercy. It also makes solidarity harder, because people learn to suspect anyone connected to the lower levels and the sea. So what? Every unequal society has its monsters. The labels change, but the function stays the same. If you can make people afraid, you can stop them from asking who benefits. 3 viewpoints reveal one machine. The novella does something quietly sharp. It does not let you stay in one moral comfort zone. From the middle, you feel the anxiety of being replaceable. From the top, you feel the temptation to protect your position and call it pragmatism. From the bottom, you feel what it means to be essential and disposable at the same time. So what? Systems survive by keeping these groups from recognizing themselves in each other. The story's tension comes from watching that recognition begin, then watching what it costs. The ark is a choice, not a guarantee. The title is not decoration. The ark shows up as an idea that haunts the story. An ark suggests rescue. It also suggests selection. Someone gets on. Someone does not. Someone decides. So what? The book keeps returning to a central moral pressure. In a world built on exclusion, doing nothing is also a choice. Refusing to act is still deciding who sinks. The best evidence and examples. One of the book's strongest moves is the descent. A problem below sea level pulls officials downward, away from speeches and status, into the place where the tower becomes raw and physical. You feel the hierarchy as they move through it. Another is the way fear is taught. People are not simply afraid. They are trained. They are given stories, warnings, and a framework that turns curiosity into danger. A third is the friction between the 3 central characters. Their distrust is not personal drama for its own sake. It is the system speaking through them. Each person has learned a different version of what the other 2 are for. Finally, there is the recurring ark motif, which frames survival as a moral problem rather than a technical one. Even when the plot is moving fast, that question keeps surfacing. If you can save someone, will you? Tensions, blind spots, and pushback. Some readers will recognize the basic shape: a vertical city, a stratified society, a crisis that forces different classes into contact. The familiarity can make the early setup feel like known ground. There is also the compression that comes with novella length. The book is deliberately dense, and that speed can make certain turns feel abrupt, especially when the story shifts from social realism into more mythic territory. That said, the familiarity is part of the point. The book uses a recognizable structure, so it can spend its energy on voice, texture, and the way power justifies itself. The story is less interested in inventing a brand new hierarchy and more interested in showing how hierarchies keep reproducing even after the end of the world. What this changes in real life. Imagine a facilities manager in London responsible for a high-rise with aging systems and tight budgets. After this book, the building stops feeling like concrete and steel. It feels like a moral map. Who gets listened to when something breaks matters as much as the repair itself. Now imagine a policy advisor in Lagos working on climate adaptation plans. The book's warning is blunt. If resilience means protecting the well-connected first, it will not stay stable. Inequality does not just harm the poor. It destabilizes everything. Then picture a tech lead in Manchester building a risk-scoring system for housing, benefits, or policing. The book's bureaucracy theme lands hard. If your categories are designed to protect the top from discomfort, your system will turn living people into cases and call the damage unavoidable. A simple action plan. Start by mapping your own tower. Who lives above the consequences of decisions in your world, and who lives below them? Next, identify the people who keep your system running, but rarely get credit. Maintenance staff, administrators, night workers, the people who stop disasters before anyone notices. Then practice crossing the border on purpose. Talk to the parts of the system you normally only meet through tickets, forms, or complaints. Audit your language. Notice when you call people risks, burdens, or problems instead of neighbors, colleagues, or citizens. Keep an honest record of near misses. Not for drama, but for memory. Systems rely on forgetfulness. Build mixed-level problem-solving into your routine. When something breaks, include someone from the bottom of the chain in the room where the decision is made. Finally, choose one concrete act of solidarity that costs you something small. Time, attention, credit. That is where we starts becoming real. Conclusion. Lost Ark Dreaming is a story about a flood, but it is not mainly about water. It is about the structures people build when they believe some lives are worth more than others. The tower is an ark that keeps shrinking, a machine that asks the same question. In different forms, who gets saved, and who gets blamed for the damage? The ending, whatever shape it takes, is less important than the pressure the book leaves you with. A society can survive the ocean and still drown in itself. Meta description: Lost Ark Dreaming summary of a climate dystopia set in submerged towers, where class, myth, and survival collide above the waterline.